Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar, Middle East Talent Market Mid-Year Update. So we are going to be talking all things talent in the Middle East today. We've got some really exciting speakers for you today as well. So just to start off with some introductions, my name is Sarah. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager at MCG Talent, and I will be your host for today. Now, to introduce our lovely panelists, we have Justin McGuire, who is the CEO at MCG Talent. Many of you may know him. He's very prolific on LinkedIn. He might not need an introduction, but here we go anyway. Justin, introduce yourself to our audience.
Hello, Sarah. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. I am mega excited to be here today, especially with my main man, Glenn, over there, who is the head of resourcing and mobility at Memac Ogilvy. Glenn and I go way back before he even moved to Dubai, where we first met in London, and Glenn came and worked for us over at MCG. So it is lovely to go full circle and do this today's webinar with him and see how well he's done with his career. So Glenn, without further ado, tell us more about yourself.
Yeah, of course. Thanks very much, Justin, and thank you very much for having me today. It's I'm really excited actually, and it's funny you mentioned that this certainly has come full circle. It was maybe 5 or 6, 7 years ago now that I moved to Dubai and come as a pretty, I guess you could probably say, Justin, a fairly junior recruiter and fairly eyes wide open and didn't really know what I was going to get myself into, but I've had some great times here, and I've been with Ogilvy for the last 4.5 years now, Director of Resourcing and Mobility. Ex-BBDO, ex-MCG, worked for a large recruitment firm in London, helping set up the creative desk there. So I've been in the space now for quite some time and doing some great work and fortunately hiring some wonderful people. So really happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Glenn. We're so happy to have you with us today and hear all of your insights coming up very shortly. Just before we get started with today's webinar, I also want to introduce Laura. Laura is going to be our chat master today. So she is going to be looking after everyone in the chat for all of your questions, and she'll be asking those difficult questions to Glenn and Justin. So don't hold back, make sure you get them in. Over to you, Laura, just to go over the housekeeping for today.
Thank you, Sarah, and good morning, everyone. So the way that we're going to use the chat function today, if you wiggle your mouse over the bottom of the screen, there is a chat box. Your questions will all be anonymous, hard word to say. So they'll come directly into us, the panelists, and only we will see your questions. So like Sarah said, don't hold back. We'll also have a Q&A session at the end for any questions that come through later on, but we'll have regular breaks throughout. So make sure you get them in. Now, just to practice using that chat function, I'm going to start by asking you a fairly simple question. If you could just pop your answer in the box so I know that it's okay for everybody, that would be great. So the question I'm going to ask is, what aspect of today's market update are you most interested in? And whilst your answers are coming in, Sarah's going to run through the agenda.
Perfect. Thank you, Laura. So in terms of what we are going to go over today, we're just going to bring up our agenda slide so that you can have a look at it. But we will be going through the Middle East. So we're going to have a focus on Saudi Arabia and the UAE today. We are also going to be talking about what hiring has been like in the first half of this year, what the most in-demand roles are in the Middle East right now, salaries and benefits, which I think is going to be a really interesting topic for everyone today. We're going to talk about what are salaries like, have they went up, have they stabilized, are they going down, what are benefits like in the region right now. We're also going to look at candidate priorities. So what are candidates looking for when they're moving roles right now? And then we're going to touch on nationalisation. We're going to talk about Saudisation and Emiratization. Then to finish off, we're going to talk about our predictions for the second half of 2024. Then it's over to all of our audience to give lots of questions to our panelists today. Make sure that you do that, as we said, and we'll answer as many of them as we possibly can. All right. So, Laura, have we had any responses so far in terms of what people are most excited to hear about today?
Yes, we've actually had a lot of responses, Sarah. So I'll just run through a couple of them. So most people are asking about the most in-demand roles across the sectors. People are also asking about the time frame usually of landing a job in the Gulf area. There's lots of people that are interested to find out your predictions for the rest of 2024. And we've also got some people that want to relocate back to Dubai after leaving, so they're interested in the salaries that are currently happening here in the UAE.
Okay, perfect. Hopefully we're going to touch on all of those points today, but if not, we'll be sure to answer any questions at the end and throughout as well. Right, so to get us started, the first point on our agenda today is a bit of an overview of Saudi Arabia and the UAE for the first half of the year. So Justin, if I can come to you first. You spend a lot of time in both of those places, the UAE and Saudi. We have business licenses in both of those locations as well. So what's been your observation so far this year on what the talent scene has looked like?
Okay, thanks, Sarah. So I'm going to break it down. First of all, I'll talk about the UAE. And when I talk about the UAE, I'm going to talk about Dubai and I'm going to talk about Abu Dhabi, because obviously they are two different markets, two very exciting markets that we're working in right now. Dubai, first of all, I'd say companies, there's just a continuous interest in businesses setting up here. So we've seen a lot of new companies come into the market, which has really sort of helped with the flow of jobs and the amount of new customers that we've had come through. In turn, we've also seen a lot of our existing customers here steadily increase and grow. Now, you can break that up between, I'd say, the multinational businesses, which seem to be growing at quite a consistent pace that we've seen, versus the SMEs and versus some businesses within the tech or tourism or specific niches that perhaps hit a real windfall here and are growing exponentially. Now, what we've noticed is with businesses growing, there's obviously an increasing amount of candidate interest, both here in the market to look for a new job, but also what with economic factors going on across the rest of the world, be it in Asia, be it inflation or wars in Europe, be it even further interest further afield from North America because of the tremendous PR machine that Dubai has. There's an increased amount of interest into coming into Dubai as well. So what has that meant for the talent market? Well, it's a really interesting ecosystem you've got then, because you've got, on the one hand, you've got a real flood and flurry of people who want to come into the market. So a lot of candidates into the market, but you don't have the same volume when it comes to obviously that regional experience, and there's a heavy demand for Arabic nationalities as well. So what we're seeing is we're seeing some people who are new and fresh to the market take a long time to get a job because they don't have the regional experience. If you think about it, a lot of the new businesses that are opening here are looking for people with regional experience. And in Dubai, you've got this constant demand for people who have got Arabic skill sets, who have got regional experience from existing and new people. So you've got some people where it's taking ages for them to find a job, and others where they're getting snapped up super fast and they're starting to command their own salaries. What we're seeing going on over the road in Abu Dhabi is a lot more senior assignments this year from our side. I think you've got some real powerhouse companies there. You've got a lot of the big holding groups, a lot of the big banks, a lot of the big energy companies. But also what you're seeing now is Abu Dhabi just increasing its prominence onto the global scene. You're seeing that sort of friendly competition between Abu Dhabi and Dubai sort of growing, if you will. And we're seeing quite a few niche specialist agencies and businesses open up in Abu Dhabi, and there's more of a demand for people to go there. It's harder to get talent there because a lot of talent sit in Dubai. Easier to get talent coming abroad into Abu Dhabi because they like the sounds of it. The cost of living slightly less, and they don't have that commute that they might have to deal with if they're already settled in the UAE. Just to kindly go on to Saudi quickly. Saudi, I feel, again, it's a tale of two stories. If you're a Saudi national, it's the most candidate-driven market, I think, in the Middle East right now. Everyone wants a Saudi national. If it's a mid-level Saudi national with a specific skill set, be it in communications, be it in advertising, be it in digital, be it in just about anything really, huge demand. There is also a demand for people to come into Saudi, but the problem with that is that it's quite hard to get expat visas in Saudi, and a lot of people who are in Saudi want Saudi experience unless it's for a very specific niche and vertical. And still then you've got to go through a 2 to 3 month visa process to get that person onboarded. So each market has its own intricacies, but that's what we're seeing so far.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And I think we'll delve into all of that a little bit deeper as we go through today's webinar. And Glenn, can you give us what your take is, kind of high level overview to start us off with what you've seen in kind of UAE and Saudi so far this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to echo a lot of what Justin said, and I'll speak specifically for the UAE first. And Justin makes a really good point. There is a lot of demand for people wanting to come to the region. This year, I mean, my inbox is just completely, especially my LinkedIn inbox specifically, is completely loaded with people inquiring about getting jobs not within Ogilvy, but just within the region itself, what it takes to come and move to the region. How can I move to the region? What's the best skill sets that I need to have? What are the best companies that I want to work for? I'm constantly having these conversations with international talent. And then conversely with local talent as well, there is a huge movement within, at least within my space, which is what I really understand, the agency space. There's always an absolute demand for some of the best talent within the region, right? We pick up some of the best and biggest global brands in the region. We need to make sure that we've got the best talent on ground that's able to service those brands. And our competitors are doing the exact same thing. So there's a constant, I guess you could say it's a friendly battle, but it is very much a battle for the right talent with the right skill set at the right price point, who can really elevate our clients' work and elevate our agency as a whole. So yeah, I'm seeing a lot of demand that similar to what Justin was saying from international and local, and I don't think that's going to slow down. I know that people say in summer things tend to slow down a little bit. I'm not seeing that at all. You know, at the start of this year, we were incredibly busy, picked up a couple of large accounts, had to hire 30 plus people across 3 markets, which kept me fairly busy for about 6 weeks. And then once that had finished, we'd won another project, which I had to continue with, and then another project, which I had to continue with. And I'm just seeing that, which is great for the business. I'm just seeing that pattern continue. And then with Saudi as well, in line with the 2030 vision, there is just so much growth happening in that market. It's really exciting to see, and it almost creates a bit of a vacuum for talent. There is just the need for talent is getting sucked in, that needs to be sucked into Saudi is massive. It's a great market if you're a Saudi national, as Justin mentioned. Like, the demand for Saudi nationals is extremely high. Our business, we need to have a 50% quota with 50% of nationals within the business, and the other 50 can be expats or people within the GCC. So we need to make sure that we have the nationals in the business. At the same time, we need to make sure that we're training them to make sure that they have the right skill set needed to perform in an agency like ours. We're a high performance agency. We're a tier 1 agency. We need to make sure that people are performing well. So we're developing all different types of talent attraction methodologies and programs and systems to make sure that when we do get people into the business, that we're getting them to the level that we need to be from a Saudi national point of view. Expats obviously is a little bit different. Sometimes they come in from a different market and they're very well trained and understand the business. So for us and for them, it's as much as just getting them up to speed with the way the Ogilvy machine works, and then we let them go and they run with it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And from what you've both said, it kind of sounds like there is a lot of jobs in the market, but there is also a massive demand on the candidate front of people, you know, looking to move to the region, looking to change jobs. I just want to go a little bit deeper in terms of what job flow has looked like this year so far. Has there been more jobs than previous years, less jobs than previous years? What have you both seen in terms of the amount of jobs in the region in comparison to previous years this year so far?
Glenn, do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. From my perspective, I see the job flow work in sprints. And the reason for that, in my opinion, is companies tend to win a big account. So then they have to staff up in a short amount of time. And then there's always a little bit of a lull between potentially a next account win. And it's a continual process like that. And talking to my counterparts within other agencies as well, they have a similar, I guess you could say, job pool. Conversely to that as well, there is the natural attrition rate that happens within agencies. The attrition within agencies I think in the market's about circa 20, probably 25%. And when you look at a business that is Ogilvy and we're around 500 employees, there's, you know, a minimum 130 to 150 just replacements that I need to find from people just rotating through the business. So there's always going to be a job flow from that perspective. And then you couple that with the new project wins, which we are winning quite a lot within the UAE, within Saudi, within Qatar, within these bigger markets. It creates, in my opinion, quite a buoyant job flow. And then again, talking to my counterparts in other agencies, fairly similar experiences at least.
And Justin, how about you?
Yeah, I would say, look, with us, it's always dependent on a few things. It's dependent on the type of customers that you work with, and it's always dependent on the regions, the difference between the two regions. So, and also how committed a business is to hiring as well. I think when you work in an agency, sometimes these are things that you can bump into a lot, is that some people can be window shopping, but not necessarily be committed to hiring. And we as an agency need to make sure which job, you know, we need to try and cut through that and make sure that stuff that we're working on is wholeheartedly going to be completed. It's actually something where someone's genuinely looking to hire. So what I've seen is this. I've seen a consistent flow of jobs in our sectors. And I'm going to break down, by the way, so everyone doesn't know, MCG Talent focuses on marketing, communications, creative and digital marketing or digital media, okay? So if I go and break down into different sectors, I can tell you in communications, I've seen consistency throughout the year. Everyone is hiring, be those for corporates, be those for governments, be those for advisory firms and agencies. PR seems to be the market that seems to be very consistent and growing this year. Not seen really much of a dip. And last year it was the same. In COVID, we saw a real spike, and I think it's it's been up there since COVID. Advertising and creative, and Glenn, you might be able to tell me if I'm right or wrong here, but we had a real dip obviously during COVID, and I feel like we're beginning to get back to where we were. But what we're seeing is a demand for good creatives, a demand for good strategists. What we're not seeing is anything like the demand we used to have for client servicing folks. Now, I think that's potentially because what we're briefed on from an agency perspective is quite often hard to fill jobs. So I think businesses find the creatives and strategists harder to find potentially than the client servicing. But that is still quite slow from an agency perspective. But it's picking up. What we're also seeing now from a digital perspective, we're seeing a recovery. Last year, all our technology companies seem to have got whacked with various different venture capital funding being taken out of the business, Silicon Valley Bank issues, lots of things within the tech ecosystem really got hit last year. That took a real whack. I can't say it's sprung back to life enormously, but I'm certainly seeing a recovery. That's within the UAE. To the flip side, on that particular sector in Saudi, the VC market seems to be very buoyant, and it seems to be that the technology sector is in high demand there. So that market's doing pretty well. If I could just go into that marketing, and now marketing is quite generic, but if I could just say social, everything seems to be in heavy demand. Performance seems to be in heavy demand. That really hasn't changed for the past couple of years. True marketeers, businesses are wanting true marketeers right now. That seems to be coming back ever so strong. And when it comes to creative as well, I forgot to mention the demand for digital designers, the demand for digital creative talent, the demand for experience design, the demand for user experience, user interface candidates. That seems to be picking up again. We took a real hit last year on that. That seems to really be coming back. So our job flow is coming back. It changes in different parts of the year in this part of the world. Now, what I will say is January is normally a bit rubbish. It takes a bit of time to get going at the beginning of the year. We then have a really good run. Ramadan obviously changes, slows down a little, and then ramps up again. We're coming into a very interesting period now in the summer where post-COVID, it didn't seem to have any interference. Last year, I saw a little bit of interference. I've got a cheeky suspicion this year we're going to see, based on conversations I'm having with people, we're going to see a bit of an exodus out of Dubai with the summer heat, going back to more traditional ways of how the market used to flow here. But let's see. December is always a little bit troublesome when it comes to hiring in the Middle East as well, because we're a heavily expat market in Dubai. In Saudi, it tends to be a bit more consistent. So really what we've got left of the year, if you take out, we've got September, October and November, and we've probably got July as our last big month of hiring, because potentially August is going to be a slow one. Those are my predictions, and that's what we're seeing so far.
Thanks. And Glenn, what about you? What roles have you seen become maybe more in demand this year so far?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, touching again on Justin's point, PR, if I look at all the my data from all the people that I've recruited within Ogilvy across the different verticals, PR and comms by a long way has been the most people that I've had come and rotate through the business, especially within the what I call middle management level. So anything from basically a senior account executive level all the way through to probably an associate account director level. There's just a demand, absolute demand for that particular talent, especially Arabic talent from all the different competing agencies. If you are a very good comms professional, you are constantly getting badgered by people like myself, by different recruiters, by competing agencies. You have a plethora of options on your plate, which is great for the candidate, maybe not necessarily great for the business. So businesses need to be very intelligent in how they attract and retain their talent, you know, in terms of their benefits, in terms of their work life. I don't want to say balance, but, you know, the difference between work and life and how that all intertwines. The growth that the candidates are getting, the exposure to different types of projects, work, etc., that's happening within the region. So yeah, I'm seeing a lot of demand for PR and comms talent. And I want to make a point, Justin, you mentioned that you're not getting briefed much on client servicing within the region anymore. And I think that's just because that particular vertical has really matured in the market, right? Everyone's now quite skilled up in that particular field. All the internal heads of, like myself, tend to know everyone within the market. So when a role that happens within our client servicing team opens up, we don't tend to need to brief any agencies on that, because we've got a big network and people are fairly well networked within that, just within our own client servicing team. So they tend to know people as well. But you're right, you're absolutely right on the creative and strategy standpoint. We always need great creatives, and there's always a need for fresh thinking coming through the market as well. And I liken the creative field similar to I guess you could say, an English Premier League football team. Conversely, they do player swaps and drafts every year, but I think there's about a 2.5 to 3 year life cycle with creatives in the region. They tend to rotate through either businesses, or they eventually go overseas to markets like New York and London and these sorts of places. And I have seen that quite a bit. So what happens is they go, and then there's new people coming in. So trying to be on top of that wave and keep your network full in that particular area is definitely a must, because we need to make sure we've always got the great creatives coming in with the fresh thinking. Absolutely.
And Glenn, has there been any roles that you've seen potentially be a bit less in demand this year, or not so far?
Yeah, definitely. And just on my point on creatives, I haven't had to hire that many creatives this year as I did in the previous years. And again, I think that's down to the fact that creatives tend to, once they've settled in a place, and they're happy with their creative leader, they'll stay there for an amount of time, which I'm seeing is around the circa 2.5 to 3 years. And it's interesting because the work that they start doing in year 1 and year 2, you start seeing at the award shows in maybe year 3. Certainly at Cannes Lions, I'm seeing a lot of guys and girls across my LinkedIn feed with the awards that they've done for Cannes Lions just coming out. And you're really seeing, like I say, like work that they've done that's been 18 months in the making start to come to fruition now. So for me, creative has taken a little bit of a back seat this year in terms of hiring, but I expect that within the next 18 months, there might be another spurt once again.
Perfect. Thank you. I see that we have quite a lot of questions coming through, so I just want to take a very brief pause in our agenda to get some of those questions answered. Over to you, Laura. We'll do about 2 or 3 questions now, and then we'll have another break for some more questions soon.
Okay, super. Yes, thank you everyone for all your questions. We have received lots. So I will start with a question from somebody about candidates and suggestions for them. So what would you suggest if somebody does have limited regional experience to begin with? Would you recommend that they maybe go freelance? What would be your take? And we'll start with Glenn.
Sure thing. Going freelance in this market it's a big step, because it's not like there is I mean, Dubai's expensive, right? So if you're going to go freelance, you need to make sure that you at least have something lined up to cover your expenses, so that way you're not too stressed about where, you know, when the next bill's going to get paid. I think it is a good opportunity, absolutely, to build your skill set within the region. Most companies do want regional experience, so if you're able to get your foot in the door with some freelance experience, great. You do need to understand the visa, the different types of visas that exist within the UAE, because there are freelance visas that you can get, then there's employment visas that you can get, then obviously there's company visas that you can get. Normally, you can't just come in and start freelancing, although plenty of people do just freelance on a tourist visa. Technically, it's not allowed, but honestly, if it allows you to get your foot in the market and allows you to get your foot in the industry that you want to get into, then absolutely recommend it. You just got to make sure that you're prepared to come over and really work hard. So that way, hopefully, it leads to a full-time opportunity, or at least networks within the industries that you can really lean on. So when a full-time opportunity does come up, then you're first and front of the pack.
Okay, great. And Justin, would you agree with everything Glenn said? Have you got anything else to add?
Yeah, look, it's a tough gig coming in from a different market right now. I fully appreciate that. The more niche you can make yourself, and the more specialist to fit to a particular role, the better. The more generic you are, the harder it's going to be to place you. I think where customers of ours are really are allowing us to open up to international candidates is if they've rinsed the current market, if they believe a fresh input or a fresh idea is required, or if there's a really niche skill that person can bring to the market, then we can go for that. Now, that's going to make it harder, a bit more time consuming for that person to come up, to move over. And then the last thing I'd say, and this is what I used to say back in 2008, believe it or not, I am that old, when I first moved here, and that was get on a plane. If you really want a job here, get on a plane. I think the days of just being able to fire in your CV or apply to a job like you buy from the supermarket right now, press a button and just apply, that's not going to get, that's a, you know, you're playing the lottery when you're trying to get a job that way. I think you need to get in people's faces. If you do that, you've got much more chance of landing a job. It's hugely competitive if you're coming from abroad right now. And that doesn't just apply for Dubai. I'd say that applies to Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Riyadh, and even Jeddah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's tough right now. There's lots of competition that we see. Somebody else mentioned as well that they're seeing like 4,000 applications on LinkedIn job posts. And the question around that was, is LinkedIn the best platform for candidates, or is there another place that they can sort of demonstrate their skills?
I would say it is one of the vehicles you can use to land a job. 100%, it's in one of the vehicles. You may, you know, if you've got a niche skill set, if you work in PR, you know, we've talked about some markets that are hot, so let's just use PR as an example. Then the chances are you're going to get called back if you've got good experience, and if you've got something that, you know, if you've got a niche vertical, if you're in public sector, if you're in healthcare, you're probably going to get a call, right? But if you are quite a generalist in what you've applied for, or if you're slightly off spec, chances are you're not going to get a call. It's very hard, of course, it's impossible to get your personality across. It's very hard to get who you are, your charisma, etc., across on a LinkedIn job ad. So there are other ways you can do it. But I'll give you an example just from me looking for people for our business. I posted a sales job for us. I got a gazillion people apply to it. Everyone thought they could do sales. About 5 people dropped me a direct message. One person sent me a video message about how and showcasing what their sales skills were. I went straight for the one that did the video message. I could see that they were keen. I could see that they were proactive. I could see what they looked like and how they presented on a video. So, boom, that's how you get to the top of the pile. That's just one example I can give.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's all about standing out from the crowd and doing things a bit different. So, Glenn, any other advice that you would add there?
Yeah, I think it's almost like you need to have a bit of an omni-channel strategy, you know. Okay, so there's one thing approaching people on LinkedIn, DMing them, applying for jobs, building out a bit of a content strategy. If you have a point of view and you are good at what you do, you can start building out a content strategy from on LinkedIn, so people can actually start seeing just how good you are at what you do, or how intelligent you are, or at least, you know, your point of view on your particular industry. Something I always recommend to people if they are really trying to come out here and get a job, and what's the best way to do it, and should I just keep applying on LinkedIn? And Justin, you mentioned this just before, come out here on a plane and start meeting people. You only need to come out for a holiday if you can afford to do it. Spend 2 weeks, spend those entire 2 weeks meeting with as many heads of talent, all the recruiters, all the head of HR, MDs, whatever it is you need to, or whoever it is you need to meet, and really try and showcase your value that you can bring to their business. That's probably the best way to do it. Second to that is absolutely doing something like sending a video. Justin's absolutely right. Like, he had thousands of applications, 5 people dropped him a DM, only 1 person sent a video. If you're able to convey your personality in a video, you're going to stand out amongst all the other thousands of applications, 100%. So if you can create a strategy where you're doing that, as well as creating a content strategy, showcasing your skill set on LinkedIn, and then you're also coming out and you're actually meeting with people, you're putting your you know, yourself on the line and coming here, you'll be able to land yourself a job and stand out amongst all the other applications for sure. And just remember, it takes time too. I tell people, be prepared for it to take 3 to 6 months before you get something, and you have to go hard too. It's not something you can do sort of 2 hours a week. Like, you've got to be consistent.
Yeah. Yeah, great. I mean, a friend of mine as well went into an agency and just showed herself, and in the end she got a job there. And it is just about that consistency and that almost bolshiness, I guess. So we've had a lot of questions. This is going to be my last one for now, about AI positions, and there seems to be a bit of concern centering around AI. So the question that to put it in a nutshell, the question that everybody's asking is, are there AI positions? What type of qualifications are companies looking for in regards to AI? And is it an absolute prerequisite that you have to have knowledge of AI now to get a job? Sorry, I can't get my words out. Let's start with you, Justin.
Yeah, look, I've obviously asked this question a lot. I spoke at an event in Saudi at the beginning of the month on this. The robots are not taking over the job, people. That is one thing I can say to you. Not yet, anyway. We're not seeing signs that the robots are taking over our jobs. What we're seeing, we're still very early days. We're not seeing design studios taken over by AI. We're not seeing all our jobs as recruiters replaced by AI. I'm often asked that as well. I think AI is there to enhance and help what we do. The customers have interest in people that know how to operate AI tools and technology. That we are starting to see, but we are not seeing jobs replaced. We are seeing job creation thus far. Could that change in the coming years as the technology improves? Yes, I think that potentially could. Could the powers that be do something to prevent that from happening? That's a whole other topic. But right now, I'm not seeing AI taking over people's jobs. I'm just seeing enhance what our customers want and can do, and I'm seeing jobs created.
Great. And Glenn, are there any specific qualifications, or are there any skills that people need to have in order to get a role here now in terms of AI?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question. I mean, AI is we're so early in early in a wider wider integration within the world popular sense. I know that AI has been on probably the topic of conversation with all the major tech companies for a long time, but because we're so early, how can anyone have really any qualifications other than self-learning, right? It's like the Wright brothers when they first flew a plane, they didn't have their pilot license, did they? It didn't really exist. So where we are within the AI sphere, like it is really, this is the way people should perceive it. It's a tool, and if you learn how to master the tool, it can really make you stand out amongst all your other peers and employees, and help bring value to your company in a great way. And you should be curious. You should really try to understand what AI is and how it's going to affect you, and how it can help you in whatever particular field you're in, especially within creative and comms and everything like that. But I think there's still a long way to go before it even gets close to supposedly taking people's jobs. as Justin said, it's job creation more than anything else. It's going to aid you. It's a tool. You should absolutely try and be as curious as you can be and learn as much as you can about it, because it's going to have a big impact for sure. And it already is having an impact on people's workflows now. So it's something that you should absolutely be in tune with. But qualifications, etc., things like that, I think it's a little bit too early for those things to even come out.
Okay, great. Good to know. I had a quote the other day, actually. It was something like, AI won't take your job, but a human using it will, which I thought was really interesting. I think I saw it on LinkedIn. We will come back to the rest of your questions. We'll answer more later through the webinar, but back to Sarah for now.
Thank you, Laura, and thanks everyone for your questions. Okay, so we are now at the point that I think a lot of people will be interested in hearing about. It's always one of the juiciest subjects that we talk about at MCG Talent, and that is salaries. So I want to ask you both, what do salaries look like in the region right now? Have they increased? Have they decreased? Are they stabilized? What have you seen so far this year in terms of salaries?
I'll go, Glenn. Basically, it's a very interesting time with salaries at the moment, because there's various factors at play. From a business perspective, and I speak as a business owner, but also a lot of my friends are business owners or work for the senior positions in companies, the cost of doing business is going up, right? That no one can deny. Everyone just looks at their utility bills. We all know that. So, but the amount customers want to pay is not going in line with the cost of business that's going up. The cost of hiring talent is going up because the cost of living is going up. So it's a very interesting, complicated ecosystem right now. What I see happening is, if you've got Arabic skills, regional knowledge, a specific tech skill, if you've got something unique you can bring to the table, salaries are going up. If you don't have that, salaries are leveling out. The flood of international applicants coming through has really sort of stabilized a lot of the salary levels that I've seen for some of the more generic positions, okay, that we work on. So in the UAE, I haven't seen salaries rise astronomically for various different reasons. In PR and comms, though, in specific sectors, they're bucking the trend slightly. But this cost of living crunch is having a big impact on businesses, okay? In Saudi, what you're seeing over there is Saudi talent salaries are going through. They're only going to continue to go one way, because the way they're seeing the strategy most companies seem to have around growing is take, pay more, take, pay more, take, pay more. Now, I've seen that happen in other markets like Singapore. What that creates is a very unhealthy spike. And what we're seeing now is the cost of living is going up there. So the expats are staying the same. The cost of living in Riyadh's gone. Riyadh's more expensive than Dubai now. So the expats that are taking a job there are actually thinking that they've been shortchanged, even though they're getting paid more in Dubai. It's actually quite tough for them to have the life that they have there, and it doesn't necessarily have the entertainment options that Dubai has. So people are finding that quite a tricky thing to deal with in Riyadh. There are still some big expat packages going for some very senior people, but look, that's a small percentile of folks. Saudi nationals seem to be fine. Their salary rise seem to be going up. The cost of doing business in Saudi, though, is very high. So I don't think this is going to continue. I'm a bit intrigued as to how that's going to continue to go up. So all in all, I'm seeing salaries only going up in certain areas, and I'm seeing the cost and pressure of inflation on business flattening out elsewhere. Where do I think that's going to take things? Well, I think Dubai is going to go a bit like how it was in Singapore when I lived there. And that is, I think you're going to start seeing quite a few jobs offshored from Dubai. And I think you've got very big hubs now, like in Beirut, you've got Cairo, you've got Amman, you've got other areas where you're going to start seeing positions that would have typically been in Dubai being offshore to those areas. I'm starting to see it in quite a few big multinational agencies that are already using that offshoring model. I'm starting to now see some SMEs and other businesses use that as well. I should probably throw Pakistan and India into the mix. I'm seeing a lot of people from a tech perspective utilize that from offshoring as well.
And Glenn, how about you? What have you seen so far this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just finishing on Justin's point. I mean, we've got a large offshore team in Lebanon. We've got an offshore team in a smaller team in Cairo. We've got a team in Oman. WPP have a massive, for our finance unit sitting in India at the moment for all of WPP. It's huge. So that's something that's absolutely happening, and it is because of those reasons that Justin mentioned. The cost of business is going up. The cost of living is going up. The cost of hiring talent is going up. In terms of salaries across the UAE, I feel that they're fairly consistent. I don't see too much of a fluctuation in most of the verticals that I work in, aside from PR. That's where I see that they're obviously, just because of the fierce competition, simple supply and demand economics creates an elevated salary range. And then within Saudi, again, echoing a lot of what Justin said, Saudi national salaries are continuously going up. There's just the competition for those particular talents is fierce. So we have to make sure that we're competitive to what all the other agencies and our competitors are paying. Expats, potentially not as much. We try and be as fair as we possibly can. We do have bands, certainly within the middle management levels. We try not to go over that because evidently people do talk within businesses. So it gets out pretty quick if there's a bit of a discrepancy between pay. So we try not to let that happen, and we don't let that happen as much as possible. Obviously, at more senior levels, there is a bit more of a range, and that's just the value that you come to the business with, right? If you've got something niche specific that you can bring to the business from whatever vertical that you're in, then you could probably command a little bit more of a package based on your skill set, especially within places like Saudi, where it is harder to get that type of talent in the market. And evidently too, talent's also becoming quite educated. They know how expensive Riyadh is compared to Dubai. Like they're very aware of this stuff. So we need to make sure that we are being as competitive as we possibly be to combat that. But yeah, salary is definitely a lot higher in Saudi than the UAE. UAE, I feel, is very consistent.
And what about benefits? How big is that in terms of, attracting the right type of talent for businesses? Like in terms of, do they offer schooling, things like that?
Yeah, good question. I mean, historically, and I know that not many agencies, I don't think any agencies offer schooling. And I've always said, if we want to attract all the best talent in the region, let's just offer schooling, right? Jokingly, I've said this to my CFO, COO, and he jokingly tells me to get out of his office. But it is something that I think agencies and businesses really need to think about. How can we be competitive? If we can't be competitive on price, if we're 2,000 dirhams more or whatever it is, or Saudi riyals less a month, what can we do from a benefits and package standpoint that'll make great talent come to us? Is there something we can do around flexibility for mothers coming in, going from school, drop off and pick up if we allow them to work later? Is there something we can do around remote working policies? We allow people to work remotely from different places around the world, as long as they don't cross a certain threshold to have any tax implications. What are the things we can do from health benefits, dental, optical? There's all these different things which people do really ask about. I regularly get asked, what's my health insurance like? Does it cover this? Does it cover that? What's your remote working policy like? How many days a week can I work from home? What if this happens? What if happens? Can I work remotely from different countries around the world? If you allow or bring in benefits that make sense to the business from a cost standpoint, but also allows you to be competitive, you will get good talent. Absolutely.
And Justin, what's your thoughts on that in terms of benefits offered by companies, and potentially, is it different based on like the type of role? Is it different based on like what type of candidate it is? How important is offering benefits to a candidate when it comes to their decision on who they want to take a role with?
Yeah, again, I sort of look at this with two sets of eyes, right? Because I think I know what candidates are going to want. I know what candidates are, it's increasingly expensive to live in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Saudi, Doha, etc. So I know that candidates are going to want as many benefits as possible. I also know, because from talking to a lot of business owners and from my customers, that those extra benefits cost money, and if they're an agency, they're not getting that from their clients, right? They're not being paid that. You can't create something out of nothing. So it's become, and the cost of medical insurance, as many people will know, is going through the roof right now. The cost of schooling, I say this as a father of three, mine have just been jacked up 25%. So it's hard, if you're a business trying to manage and compete with that, and once you start, if you're a big business like Glenn's of 500, You start giving those benefits to a few. Next thing you know, you've got an enormous amount of money that's being spent and your margins are squeezed. And then that's going to like reduce your ability to grow and find new talent. So very hard to do, very hard to balance. I think the missing trick that a lot of people are doing, like what Glenn's touched on there, the Middle East, so anyone that drives in Dubai will tell you rush hour traffic is a bloody nightmare, okay? So why is it a bloody nightmare? Because no one has a remote work policy, okay? It is still a very old-fashioned market out here. You go to London. Now, I'm not saying that I like seeing the city of London as a ghost town, but Friday afternoon, it ain't like it used to be when I was there. Let's put it that way. It is a ghost town. And I think what you've got to, playing with flexibility, that hybrid work model, giving people, Dubai is situated beautifully geographically between East and West. There are options that people can have. I think leveraging in on that, it doesn't cost the business anything. Certainly, if you're a parent, there's lots of advantages to people there. Flexibility and hybrid work is a big thing companies can leverage on. I've got a couple of smart clients that have done that and worked it really effectively. And that is a real benefit that we can sell in on.
Thank you. And then our second to last point, I'm conscious of time, so I want to make sure that we get through everything, is on nationalisation, Emiratisation and Saudiisation. How difficult is it to find the right talent to hit those quotas, and what are the best ways to secure that talent as well for anyone who's struggling with that just now?
Glenn, do you want to go for it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll speak to Saudi first. I mean, the Saudiization piece, I mean, it's a lot bigger. We need to have a lot more Saudis in our business than we do in the UAE to start with, right? But there is actually a lot more Saudi nationals in the job market looking for work as well. Okay, so I find personally, just from my experience, that finding Saudi nationals just to be a little bit easier than Dubai. Conversely to Dubai, again, supply and demand economics is because the populace of nationals looking for work, specifically when the Marcoms industry is quite small, we have to be very clever around how we attract and retain that talent. Okay. Ogilvy is a big name within the advertising industry, but a lot of the nationals don't necessarily know who we are. So there's an education piece to be like, well, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is what we can teach you, right? And then it's almost like an omni-channel strategy that we need to develop, so that way they understand who we are, the type of work that we do, the type of clients that they're going to work with, so that way they find our workplace interesting enough for them to step away from a big government package that they might get, or a big government authority where their mother and father or cousins are working, or something like that, because that really means a lot to nationals. Where does my mother work? Where does my father work? Where do my brothers work? That actually says a lot with UAE nationals specifically. So it's like historically they will go into the same industry, but at the exact same time they do want something interesting. They do want to learn, and a place like Ogilvy is going to be completely different to probably what they've been exposed with. But how do we attract those people? Well, we have to do a lot of external, internal marketing, meeting with the right universities, trying to make people and educate nationals on who we are and what we do, and the growth and learning that we can provide them. That's how we combat quite a challenging recruitment market, because the other point to that is because everyone's also looking for the exact same talent, there is a bit of a price war. So sometimes we just get priced out of great candidates because we're competing against businesses who are triple and double our size, and that's just what it is. So the only way we can really combat that is by saying, well, come work at Ogilvy. We're very cool compared to maybe a cut and dry, fairly corporate environment, and this is the type of work that you're going to get exposed to, certainly with some of the work that they do on our clients.
And Justin, what are your thoughts?
So I've shared my thoughts a couple of times on this, and I've spoken at a couple of events. There is an obsession with hiring skill-based nationals right now. And with that, if that continues to be the case, you're going to continue to have this spike that everyone just putting up salaries. I'm a great believer in hiring attitude, training skill. And for a lot of the jobs that we work on, I truly believe that you can train an individual to become that person. Let's take Saudi, for example. And UAE, actually, there's a tremendous young workforce coming into market, highly educated, that are hungry for opportunities, that are hungry to work, that believe in the vision of their country, that, you know, when I'm in Saudi, one thing I'm just blown away by is how much people have bought into Vision 2030, how excited people are about the changes going on in their country. But the limited opportunities that are available to the youth or to the experienced, actually, who don't have the right skill sets is unfathomable. There is this huge volume of people that want to work, but because everyone's so obsessed with skill-based hiring, because they want what they had in Dubai, what they have in London, what they have somewhere else, they want a carbon copy of that, then that means only a small percentile are getting hired. If you want to hire Saudi nationals and grow your business in Saudi, hire young people, invest in training, invest in education, hire on attitude and train skill, and you've got a massive potential to grow. Same, you know, we in the UAE, we really bump into Emiratization in Abu Dhabi quite a bit, and there seems to be much more of an interest in training young Emiratis now and bringing them into the forefront. The senior ones are paid very well. I think the new rule changes for companies over a size of 20, I don't think we as recruiters have really started to feel that yet. I think if you've got there, it's a bit grey in how you can bring those people on. But I think those changes around the corner as well. And we're going to probably see a bit of a spike and a bit of a headhunting spike in that. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that one pans out. But to summarize, higher attitude, train skill when it comes to nationals.
Perfect, thank you. And my last question for you both before we move on to our Q&A session is, what's your prediction for what the second half of 2024 is going to look like from a recruitment point of view?
Glenn, do you want to kick off?
For myself, yeah, absolutely. For myself in the business, I mean, we're constantly pitching for new business. There's always a pitch coming in. There's always new accounts that we've won. So for myself, specifically with what I've got and my remit and what I can see, I'm going to be very, very busy, which is great. You know, specifically with PR and comms, we're winning so much business. The issue isn't winning business now; it's getting the right talent in the business. And I know, Justin, we've had some conversations around that as well. You know, that particular industry is just a challenge to get the right talent to handle the accounts, right? So we're going to be very, very busy within that space. Client servicing, social. I mean, I did a huge social the start of this year, just hired a ton of different social people across different levels. That's kind of flatlined a little bit at the moment. Client servicing, the moment we win new accounts, that's going to be picking up again. So for myself, I'm going to be seeing it continue to be very, very busy.
I actually see things going as they are now, which is steady growth, okay? And I don't really want us to change more than that. I think we've got a couple of proposals out for some RPO projects. That means when we bring someone on site to hire a big bulk amount of projects. For me, it's all as our business, it's quality over quantity. We are a mid to senior level recruiter. So we're not going to be doing huge volume hiring. We want to work with really good companies on really good jobs. I see that continuing to grow. I think we're continuing to validate the type of businesses we work with here to make sure they're not window shopping. I think there are some concrete customers here who are really looking to grow their business. In terms of if I look at it right now, how's it look? We've got a lot in PR and comms. We've got a steady growth of creative jobs coming through, which is much more than last year, which I'm really excited about. We've got an interesting mix of tech and not IT roles. I'm taking tech within the Marcom's ecosystem. Social, interesting. Glenn said social for him slowed down a bit. Social for us has pretty much been consistent all year. I see a wide, broad mix of jobs. Everyone that we work with in Saudi wants a Saudi national, especially their mid-level. I don't see that changing ever, to be honest with you, until 2030. But the bit that's going to be interesting is the windows in which when people hire now in this part of the world. So for anyone listening, just to be clear on that, I expect August to be a little bit slower. There's the exodus. December, there's the exodus. So there's that window coming up now. July, the schools are going to break up in a couple of weeks. Well, mine are off in a week and a half. You're going to see some change in the market. Then you're going to see interviews are going to be interrupted by travel schedules. You're going to see the August exodus. Flood's going to come back in September, October, November. Exodus again in December.
Great, thank you so much. So this brings us to the end of our agenda, and we are going to move on very quickly to our Q&A session. So if you haven't asked your question yet, make sure you get them in the chat now, and Laura will go through them with Glenn and with Justin. Before we finish up, I just want to say thank you very much to our panel today. So thank you, Justin, for taking part in the webinar today. If people want to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Best way to keep in touch with me, look, LinkedIn, I get quite a lot of folks approach me on LinkedIn. I do my best to try and to sort of come back to people. So reach out to me on LinkedIn, but please be patient and I will come back to you.
And Glenn, thank you so much for sharing all your insights with us today and being our guest. If people want to keep in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Thank you very much once again for having me. LinkedIn is definitely the best way to get a hold of me. And similar to Justin, I do get a lot of requests and messages every day. I do try to get back to as many people as I can. So if you do reach out, please be patient. I will get back to you as well.
Thank you. And thank you, Laura, for being our chat master today. I'm going to hand over to you now to ask questions. Oh, you're on mute.
Apologies. Thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate that. We have had loads of questions, so we will try to get through as many of them as we can. If you've got any more, make sure that you pop them in. This is going to be your last chance to get your questions in. So I'm going to start by asking a question directed at Justin. How does MCG Talent validate whether a company is just window shopping? This question is from another TA, so interested to hear your take on that.
Okay, two strategies. Both one, when you've got, some people will sign terms of, right, first of all, you send through your terms of business after you've taken a brief. If you never hear from them again, or it takes them quite a long time, or they want to pay not a lot of money to find the right talent, that gives you a good inkling that they're not necessarily serious. So that's the first clue. If then they then sign terms of business with you, you can do it, and they're a new client. You send a couple of tester CVs through. If you don't hear from them for a week, you know it's not urgent, and that therefore doesn't make it a priority. So a couple of things I look out for there. And of course, how responsive the customer is to communication as well is always telltale.
Great advice. So hopefully that answers your question for that one, and just look out for those signs. So this one's directed at Glenn specifically. How important is the Middle East experience for you when hiring at Ogilvy? Would you consider onboarding someone with only international experience in an agency?
Really good question. It is very dependent on the client that this person is going to be servicing and the work that this client is going to be doing. Okay. We recently hired someone from the UK for our PR team. She's actually Australian, but she was sitting in the UK. She has no regional experience, but she had the right experience from a comms perspective. We knew we could give her the 6 months that she needed to really get up to speed with the way that the market worked, and we're able to hire her. Conversely to that, on some other accounts, I absolutely need people with regional experience who probably have Arabic, who are Arabic speakers as well, or for those accounts. So when you're applying for jobs, it's almost like, it's not a 50-50, I would say, but you're either going to be, if you're an international candidate, if they don't need someone with regional experience, so they're able to give you that time to get up to speed, as long as you've got the right skill set, then you'll get a look in. Whereas other clients, they need someone with regional experience because we're too busy and we don't necessarily, we can't handhold you. We just need you to be able to pick up with it and run with it. And especially if you're at what I would say an account director level and above, we want those people with regional experience. Very, very rarely do we hire people outside the region at that level to come in, because we need them to just have an understanding of the market, really.
Okay. Now you mentioned Arabic speakers throughout and in that section, and we have had a few questions about that, about whether it's worth candidates learning some Arabic, having a basic knowledge of Arabic to put themselves in a better position to get a role here. What would you suggest? Is that a good thing?
I would say, okay,
Yeah,
who's
go.
going first? Me or you? Do you want to
You
flip a
go.
coin?
You go.
Okay.
You go
In
first.
PR, look, so when Arabic talent, I mean in PR and comms, it's very hard to find good Arabic writers. Okay, so Arabic writing skills, that's really hard to learn, and so particularly different dialects that are required, etc. That's a real big plus. Like if you're going to learn Arabic or try and speak Arabic, I mean, look, of course, that's going to put you ahead of the pecking order. It just depends on the quality of how well you can speak Arabic. If you're fluent or you learn to be fluent, that's a big, big plus, and it won't ever stop being a big, big plus.
I agreed with that. Any feather that you can put in your cap, which aids you get a job here, the better, right? Learning Arabic's not something that's easily done, though. It's probably one of the hardest languages to really learn in the world, and there is so many different dialects and so many different dialects within the region. So I think I did ask one day. I said, "What's if I had to learn an Arabic language, which one should I do?" And everyone here had said to me, "Learn the Emirati Arabic," and I was like, "Okay, no problem." That was the advice that I got.
Are you doing that?
No. I need to. I'm trying to finish my Spanish, although I'm not very good at that either.
I tried to learn too, Glenn, and it's not going very well. I think I can say about 5 words now. So
I just
and
watch a
not
lot of
very well.
Narcos on repeat.
Now we've had a few questions about creative talent as well. There seems to be lots of creatives with us today. So what are the best places to look at for creative networking to build up that rapport with people? Let's start with Glenn.
Okay. I mean, for creatives specifically, you really need to be networking with all the other creatives in the region, right? You're trying to reach out to them, trying to showcase your work. If you're here in the region, I'm sure there's a ton of meetups that happen within the creative industries. It's really just about your network and networking with all the leaders within the industry, really understanding what great creative is and having a point of view. And then really understanding what's changing within the industry and how can you get at the forefront of that particular change from a creative standpoint. Yeah, that's my opinion. If you really want to set yourself apart from everyone else, you really need to start building your network within the creative realm here and with the right people.
Right. Justin?
Look, one of the joys of being in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Doha, Riyadh, Jeddah, let's say those places, is they are very well-known places, but actually they're villages. They're very small as well. So once you're on the ground, it's really, and I find that the creative community especially is one that is really embraces new people that arrive. It seems to be very warm. There are lots of communities on LinkedIn. There are lots of meetups that, as Glenn mentioned there. I think recruiters themselves, like we put on a creative event recently as well. I think creatives seem to be very keen to want to reach out to creatives, be proactive. When I was new in this town, all of us here, most of us here are new into Dubai or this town. I was as proactive as possible, tried to go and meet as many people for coffees. You're always one person away from someone. Get out there, go meet people, and I'm sure you can quickly network and become part of a community. It's a really friendly, warm, when I lived in London, you dared have eye contact with someone in the tube. Here, someone will go for a coffee with you and they never even met you before. It's a completely different way of life.
Right, great. Now, just I'm going to start with you for this one because it's about graduates, and obviously I know you've done a few workshops at universities, so I know you've got some great advice for this one. How would you recommend fresh graduates go about getting jobs in this region?
Work experience, work experience, work experience is what I'm going to say on that. And you need to do, this is where you need to be super proactive, okay? This is where just sending through a LinkedIn application is going to, you're going to be, look, I'm going to say it clear, you're going to be at the bottom of the ring there because you've got no experience. You're sending through a LinkedIn application. People are going to look at your profile and go, this person don't know anything. I'm sorry to say that, but that's what they might say. Best thing you can do is be super proactive. I'll give you an example of this event I was speaking at in Saudi. I turned up, this waitress, she was great. She gave me some food, gave me an orange juice. At the end of it, said, by the way, I took this job because I want to get into PR. I know you're a recruitment guy. Here's my CV on a QR code. She gave me her card. If I scanned the QR code, there was her CV, completely proactive, top of the pile, met her. I mean, you just know that person's going to be a big success in the business, in the industry. You can see how proactive she is. So that is the type of attitude that you need to have when you're fresh out of college looking for a job. You need to be super proactive. You need to be in people's faces. You need to be seen in the places where the potential hiring managers are going to be.
Right. And Glenn?
Yeah, with graduates, and it goes with the name, you've graduated, you don't have any real life skill sets that could maybe add value to the business. But what do you have? You have your passion, you have discipline, and you've got energy. And you need to showcase those three things to whatever business that you're trying to get into, right? And I think, getting your foot in the door, doing multiple internships, really trying to understand the different businesses that you're working for, understand the different clients that you're working with, and really trying to, as quickly as you possibly can, understand the business that you really want to get into is going to give you a real leg up against other people. And getting into those positions in the first place, I mean, like as Justin said, just applying for things on LinkedIn is not going to work. Sending a video through to hiring managers is going to really make you stand out. Building a website is going to make you really stand out. Having some form of portfolio is going to make you really stand out. Like, put the effort in to make yourself stand out amongst everyone else. That's definitely something that I see working. And when someone comes through with a website that they've built, that's curated, that's beautiful, and okay, not everyone can build a website because maybe they're not so creatively minded, but they can get someone to help them with that. It's just going to add that little bit of an extra step, which allows you to get in front of the right people. And once you're in front of the right people, then you can showcase your energy and your passion for the industry, what you're trying to do, and that's how you land your first role.
Okay, standing out, enthusiasm, all the buzzwords. My next question is going to be about salary ranges, because we've had quite a few questions about this come through. So I'm going to try and sort of group them into one. A lot of people are wondering why some companies advertise a position at, say, 6,000 dirham, and other larger companies might offer 28,000 dirham for the same or similar roles. What's the reasoning behind that?
What I've seen, when I've seen that as examples, and when I've delved deeper into it, it's people are the 6,000 quite often to apply from someone who's working it from another market. Okay, so that 6,000 is worth the 28 in the other market, or there's a complete disparity. Someone's marketing manager is someone else's most junior person going. Okay, I think there is no rule when it comes to job titles, and this is what people need to remember: that someone's manager is someone else's executive, is someone else's MD, is someone else's. So that the job title aspect can be very confusing. There are, though, some. I'm not going to lie. There are some businesses which perhaps want to pay peanuts for a job, and to be honest with you, they're just never going to get the right talent, and I just can't see how anyone in this market is going to accept. I think I saw that question. Someone saw something advertised for 6,000 dirhams per month, and another company advertising it for 28,000 dirhams a month. Let's be frank. If you're really good at what you're doing in Dubai, you're not going to be taking 6,000. So perhaps if you're sat in another market, an offshore market, or Cairo or somewhere else, that 6,000 would go a lot way further, and that might be the reason why. I can't give examples for every single one. That's just my take on it.
Okay, and Glenn?
Yeah, I think, ideally, if people are advertising similar roles, one's offshoring, they make it very, very clear within the job description that, hey, this role is working for Dubai, but it's based in this market. So then that makes a little bit more sense. But again, echoing Justin's point, the businesses of all different sizes, right? So the marketing manager for a business of 1,000 people versus a marketing manager for a business of 20, there's going to be some differences there, and potentially in salary, because the responsibilities are going to be completely different. And Justin's right again. Who creates the titles? There is no rules around what title we give people. Some titles are, a lot of the times completely made up, especially within startups and things like that. It's just trying to get the right people in. So the disparity that you see on certain job posts, I mean, again, if you're really good at what you do, you're not even going to really look at that as a job that you're gonna apply for, are you?
Okay. Another question that has come up quite a few times is about salaries and benefits. I know we've obviously touched on this earlier, but people are wanting to know if there are opportunities for remote roles here, if you've seen anything recently, if there's flexible working policies in place here. What's your take on that, Justin?
They are there. They're not in plentiful supply though, and I think you've also just got things to keep in mind that there are tax. One of the reasons people enjoy coming to the GCC region is because it's a tax-free environment, and if you're working remote and not based in the GCC, you're going to be facing tax implications from the country that you're working from. So that's always a little bit of a very grey area to cross. I think overall, the hybrid and flexible roles are coming up more and more, but the actual remote, unless it's being offshored, we don't get many customers advertise roles, highly skill set driven roles that are remote. I find that Middle East is a very in your face kind of, it makes, in order to progress well in business, you kind of need to be here. You need to feel it. You need to touch it. You need to see it. And I think if you're working in creative, if you're working in recruitment, if you're working in design and that, all the areas that we work in, doing it when you're not breathing it is very, very hard.
Yeah. And Glenn, what would you say about that question?
Yeah, you know, like Justin said, they are out there. They're just not in very big supply, and it's because of the way that the region operates. People want to see people. They want to meet them face to face. It's hard to do business over, fully remote. Ideally, people are here. Yeah, you can get them, especially sort of tech-focused roles, probably more than anything else. But for the majority of roles, remote's just not really going to be an option at this stage. Whether that changes or not, like who really knows where the world and how the world's going to evolve. Obviously, we are seeing it to a degree, but whether it's going to go 100%, I don't see it happening anytime soon.
Okay. All right, we are going to have to wrap it up there, I'm afraid, because we have gone over. But one little mention for somebody who's looking at initiating a business in the Middle East, which is something that's just come through. I'm going to give out a shout out to Justin here just to mention his new mentoring venture. And also, he also runs a brilliant newsletter that's advice to people looking to start out companies here. So just a quick shout out for you there. I'm going to hand over to Sarah just to wrap it up as well. And thank you, everyone, for answering all the questions. Thank you for asking all the questions as well.
Thank you, Laura, and thanks once again, Glenn and Justin, for all your insights today. And thank you, everyone, for your questions and for being with us today. Our next webinar for all of the creatives who are on with us today is going to be around tech, trends and talent within the creative space in the Middle East. So keep an eye out for that. We'll be sending an invite to you shortly so that you're able to join us for that one too. But thanks again, everyone, for today, and we will see you on the next one, hopefully.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
See you later.
Thanks.